seated, please? If everyone would be seated, please. We're getting ready to begin. Okay, good morning and welcome to the O&P and DME HCPCS Public Work Group meetings. My name is Felicia Eggleston. I'm a member of the Part B drug team, and I'm here today as your moderator. I want to let you all know that this meeting is being webcast via CMS. The CMS webcast is live, so it begins as our meeting begins. By your attendance here today, you are giving consent to the use and distribution of your name, excuse me, likeliness, and voice during this meeting. You are also giving consent to the use and distribution of any personally identifiable information that you or others may provide or disclose during today's meeting. We ask that you please do not disclose any personal health information. This webcast can be found in archives after the meeting on YouTube or the CMS Ustream website, and I believe it is there permanently. So now I want to go over some housekeeping items. First of all, when you leave out the auditorium, as you proceed down to your right, you will see the restrooms on the left-hand side. Then as you venture on out and then make the left-hand turn towards the lobby, if you make that right at your first set of elevators and continue on down the stairwell, you'll reach our coffee cart and our cafeteria. And I want to remind you that CMS has a policy here that for visitors that they remain only in the public areas, which would be the lower lobby and the main lobby as you entered on today. If you're found anywhere else, you will need to be escorted by someone who works here. If any of you will need assistance in arranging for taxi service today, please see the concierge at the desk. CMS is a non-smoking campus. There is a smoking area that is located outside the building near the guard stations at both entrances to the campus. We would like to ask at this time that you would please put all cell phones and BlackBerries on silent. I would like to also ask that all speakers and anyone answering questions, please be sure to step up to the microphone so that we can hear you. This includes everyone, even internal and agency staff. I would like to ask for everyone's cooperation and sticking to the speaking time frames. Primary speakers, you have up to 15 minutes, and 5-minute speakers have up to 5 minutes. I will be keeping your time today on my cell phone. It's in airplane mode. For 15-minute speakers, once you have 2 minutes left, I'll gently whisper 2 minutes. And then as your time ends, I'll get up and begin to approach the podium behind you. For 5-minute speakers, you'll come up to the microphone that's located right here in front of the stage. And when your time has ended, I'll stand up and begin to approach the microphone. So that indicates for you to please wrap up. Speakers may not call on other speakers or designate any unused time. Only the moderator can call speakers. Time permitting, we may or may not have a coffee break on this morning's agenda. The agenda is rather short today. At this time, I would like to introduce Cindy Hake. She is the Deputy Director of CM's Division of DemiPost Policy and of CMS's National Level 2 HCPCS program. She will provide opening remarks and a brief description of the background and purpose of today's public meetings.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We appreciate when interested parties attend our public meetings. The process is always a richer experience because of the input that we receive at these meetings. So thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us here today. And we look forward to your input. I'm here basically to describe what happens before the HCPCS public meetings, and that is that CMS's HCPCS work group reviews each and every application before us. The work group consists of members who let us know the program operating needs of the private insurance sector, Medicaid, state Medicaid agencies across the board, Medicare, and we have also work group members representing the Veterans Administration appointed out of Washington. We publish preliminary decisions along with our decision-making rationale about 4 weeks in advance of the public meetings. And then at these meetings, we hear your testimony, but final decisions are not made at this meeting. after the public meeting, CMS's HCPCS work group reconvenes to reconsider all the applications before us, together with the input that we received through this public process and any input that we've received in writing up until the date of the public meeting. And sometimes our preliminary decisions are changed based on input that we receive through this forum. So this is a valuable forum, not only to us, but to our applicants as well. For those of you providing comments today, please make sure that you highlight your key points that you make as you support or refute our preliminary decisions. We'll be capturing those key points and including them in our public meeting summaries, and also those are the points that you want us to consider as when we reconvene and reconsider the applications. Once final decisions are formulated, we publish the final decisions via the HCPCS annual update. And in addition, we made some changes last year to our process to improve transparency. And so we're now publishing the final decisions on CMS's HCPCS website in two formats. One is as a spreadsheet, and the other is a narrative format that looks very much like the agendas that you have before you. It has a description of the product and the request with the preliminary decision. It'll include key points made by the primary speaker if we had one, and then it'll include the final decision. So that kind of tells the whole story of the application beginning to end. And that is new as of last year. We also established last year a new web-based notice and comment process to gather public input when CMS makes internal decisions to discontinue codes that otherwise wouldn't be replaced by other codes or by new codes. And so we publish our intent on CMS's HCPCS website and offer a 3-week comment period. So we do try to publish any changes that we have by July 1. We will probably have a couple items to publish this year. They may be scattered, that is, published on different dates, but they will be before July 1st. So keep an eye out for those, and always at this time of year, keep an eye on our website if that's something that interests you. And also, for the first time last year, we began having these meetings on YouTube via live stream, thanks to CMS's National HCPCS Public Meeting Coordinator, Jen Carver, so that we can expand our audience, and anyone that's interested in attending but unable to travel to Baltimore can watch remotely. And just one more final announcement I would like to make about HCPCS code applications next year. We have a long history of wanting to, as a courtesy, help out our applicants, and we've kind of taken on the job just to help and sort of as a favor of helping folks make applications complete that came in that were incomplete. Some of these incompletions were really obvious, not answering questions, not signing. Sometimes we have content in response to an answer that really doesn't answer the question, these kinds of things. And this has kind of grown and grown until we felt this year like we were almost like the quality review team. We literally this year spent about a month into our process just helping folks complete their applications. And that detracts from our ability to do our job, which is to support the HCPCS work group. So we're going to have to put the quality review job back onto the shoulders of the applicants where it really belongs. The very first criteria in our decision tree is that the application is timely and that it is complete. And so next year we're going to enforce very strictly this timely and complete criteria. So I'm sure you'd rather hear that from me now than hear it from me next year and have it come as a surprise to you. So that's it. We look forward to your input today. It'll be a productive meeting. Thank you again for coming.
At this time, I'd like to introduce some other CMS HCPCS staff. We have Jennifer Carver. Please stand. Okay. Jennifer is CMS's National HCPCS Public Meeting Coordinator. Next, we have Kimberly Combs-Miller. Kimberly is CMS's National HCPCS Work Group Meeting Coordinator. And then we have Lori Jackson, who's coming in right now. Okay, so the three of them work tirelessly and hard to put together all of the thousands of details necessary in order to provide this opportunity for public comment. And I just want to mention that Jen is also responsible for extending this public forum to the webcast. Okay, I'd like to also introduce Dr. Subhash Dugarala. He is the medical advisor to CMS's HCPCS work group. And right now, I'd like to thank Charles Hirsch and Felix. They're behind our booth here, and we'd like to thank them for handling all of our audio-visual needs on today. So, before I begin with how the meeting will proceed, I'd like to tell you all that there's a summary of the DemiPost payment in the end of your agenda, if anyone is interested. So, the meeting will proceed as such. Everyone should have received the meeting agenda upon sign-in. If you have not, there are some still available on the table. For each item on today's agenda, there's a written summary of the application and of CMS's preliminary coding decision. The meeting will proceed one agenda item at a time until we have completed the agenda. We will hear a presentation from the registered primary speaker, if there is one, and any other 5-minute speakers, if there is one, for each agenda item. After we've heard from all registered speakers, we will invite discussion and questions specifically related to that item. We'd like to ask that every speaker state who you represent, state your relationship to the applicant and to the manufacturer, declare in your oral presentation and in your written summary whether or not you have any financial involvement with the manufacturers or competitors of any items or services being discussed. This includes any payment, salary, or benefit provided to the speaker by the manufacturer. We'd like to also ask that you state whether you agree or disagree with the preliminary decision, and when you summarize your comments, state your rationale for your agreement or disagreement. So at this time, I'd like to begin the meeting with agenda item number 1, and this is the DME portion of the meeting. Attachment numbers 15.109, request to establish 2 unique level 2 HCPCS codes to identify a power center mount elevating foot platform and a power center mount foot platform extension. Attachment number 15.110, request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code to identify single spine backrest system. Attachment number 15.111, request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code to identify a dynamic backrest frame component for adult wheelchairs. Our primary speaker is Rita Stanley.
Good morning. I want to start by just saying thank you for the opportunity to be here, and Cindy, thank you for your patience with me as I tried to get all my stuff in last year, so the advance warning is appreciated. I do have 3 separate items, and I do work for the manufacturer of each of these, full-time employed, so yes, there is salary and benefits that go along with my job, and so I do have that association. And I will speak to our agreement or disagreement as I go through each of the 3 items. Our first one, I'm actually not even addressing necessarily the center mount, elevating, articulating center mount platform. I did that in an oral summary, so I'm not going to take time to necessarily go through that here, other than to state that we agree with the decision to establish a new code. We do not agree with the decision to not recognize the articulation feature of this, because that is a very significant clinical as well as technological cost. And we also disagree with the idea of everything being included. I'm going to talk to that issue as I get into my other 2 items. And have some concerns, significant concerns about not gap filling this code, but instead to take a fee schedule from a similar item and apply it. So I just want those at least statements on the record. But I'm going to move now into the decision regarding the mono backrest system that Sunrise manufactures. The decision, we disagree with the decision. The decision was essentially that this item is already included in the reimbursement for the base wheelchair. We disagree with this primarily from the aspect that that is inconsistent with decisions that have been made in the past. When it comes to wheeled mobility, there's been very specific items that must be included in order for the wheelchair to be considered complete. But then there's also examples where when there is an upgraded item that can replace the standard item, there's been the ability to charge for those upgrades. And examples of those are height adjustable arms, angle adjustable foot plates, solid seat inserts that would replace the upholstery. So there is historical recognition that there are upgrades, and this particular item would fall into that category. The other thing that I think is really important to bring note to here is that when there's innovative technology that meets a different clinical need, but there's a decision that you can't bill for this item, it's included in the base price. Essentially what that does is it blocks access. So this item is a very unique design. It's an opportunity that you can take a person who otherwise might require a custom molded system, and you have the ability to more intimately fit them with more made-to-measure type items, which are typically less expensive. It also means, and I've got a video that'll get into this in just a second, but it means the back width of the chair is no longer necessarily tied to the seat width of the chair, which is very significant when you're dealing with people with postural asymmetries and anatomical needs that can't be met by a very box frame, which is what you get with a standard wheelchair. The impact of this is purely observable. You don't need to do a clinical trial necessarily to see this. You could look at a person. I would probably be, embarrassing to say this, but I would probably be a decent example of a person who would need a wider seat width than a back width. And by disassociating the two or disconnecting the two, you're able to do that. It also allows, it has a single spine as opposed to the two backrests, tubular backrest that would be standard for a wheelchair. And because it's a single spine that's attached to the seat frame, you have the ability to actually move the spine 2 inches either side, left or right of center. Again, that allows the opportunity to address asymmetries, postural deformities, things that you're just not going to be able to do with the basic two-post backrest. It also allows for some adaptation for weight gain or weight loss or changes in posture. So that becomes rather important in terms of cost as well. So the major problem that's associated with the decision is that it basically denies any additional reimbursement for this item, which basically says nobody's going to be able to get it. The retail on this item ranges, but it's in the area of $900, and so a supplier just absolutely cannot absorb that. We do an upcharge for it. It's not a new charge. It's not an additional charge or bundling something on top of something that's already paid for. We actually consider that there is a adjustment for the item you're not receiving, and you're only charged the difference between the two. The other thing that's really sad about the decision is if suppliers aren't going to be willing to provide it at no additional reimbursement, then ultimately there has to be a more expensive solution. Ultimately, it would force moving more towards a custom molded system as opposed to a more made-to-measure system, purely because that's a way that you can get reimbursed and this way would not. It also impacts children as well as dual eligibles. This is a significant item for the pediatric population, and by the code basically saying it's already included, that's how other payers will interpret that as well. So it's going to impact that population. I want to, before I go here, Felix, could I switch to my computer to show a couple of videos? I thought since words maybe don't necessarily describe this item or this technology as well.
With one back post, the Quickie Mono Backrest system can easily accommodate backrests that are wider or narrower than the seat frame.
So I'm going to give you a sense of that.
In a dual-post backrest mounting system, the mounting hardware frequently limits the placement of the thoracic lateral supports. When using a single-post system, lateral supports can be placed anywhere on the backrest mounting tracks.
And this is just speaking to the midline offset.
A unique feature of the single-post backrest mount is the ability to easily accommodate a midline offset of 1 inch or even 2 inches.
So I just wanted you to be able to, and there's one more on that particular.
The Quickie Mono backrest can recline 30 degrees rearward. It also features a separate 8-degree micro adjustment located on the backrest mounting bracket.
So I hope just by looking at those short little video clips, it gives you a sense that we're really talking about technology that's quite different from a standard tubular back post that would be mounted to the frame of the wheelchair. This really is structurally much different, clinically in terms of what you're able to do with it and how you can accommodate for people with very special needs. I want to go a little bit further before I move back into my, and thank you, Felix, just to say that when you're dealing with the types of items that we've requested here, the population of individuals that need this technology tend to be fairly small. It's not a huge population that would benefit from these items, but it's when they need them, they really need them. And so our numbers are not necessarily going to be high, units aren't going to be high, but as we've tried to use KO 108 with other payers, that's become so incredibly complicated for them. If a Medicaid program, for example, has an audit and they can't prove that what they got or that what they paid for what was provided was appropriate, it just is causing so much anxiety for these programs to not have specific codes. But yet, when you have a utilization that's going to be low, I mean, I don't care how many times we show this product or demonstrate this product, there's just a very fixed group of individuals that can benefit from complex rehab technologies to begin with. So it's a small population, but a very, obviously fits a very specific need. So Sunrise just respectfully requests that there be a reconsideration of the decision and that there be a code created to represent a single spine backrest system. You know, and if there's the decision that, hey, utilization's too low, you can't just justify a unique code, then at least to have it where it could be billable as an upgrade, whether it's using a miscellaneous code or. We have a similar situation when I moved to attachment 1511. Again, it's a backrest, so the decision was that the backrest was included in the wheelchair's basic fee schedule. Again, Sunrise respectfully disagrees with that decision. The dynamic backrest, which I'll show you a video in just a second, is an item that when we first started building this item was purely available through a division at Sunrise called Built For Me. I know this can be a difficult term to use, the word custom, but the way I'm going to use it here is that the item was not available on our order form at all. It was something that we would build one-off each time a person needed it based on the chair that it was being placed on. And after several years of doing it that way, having engineering involved, and seeing that the utilization was growing or the need or the recognized need for this item was growing, we made the decision to move it to our order form, but only on very specific wheelchairs. And so this is not something that would be available for just any standard wheelchair, or typically you wouldn't even see this on a K5, K0005 code, but more on tilt in space or chairs where you're really dealing with an individual that is high tone. So again, not something there's huge numbers for. It's something that is typically used if a person does have a lot of tone. In the past, the clinical was to put a person in a wheelchair, get them fixed at 90, 90, 90, strap them down, hold them in place. And through the years, it's been discovered that that is really not necessarily in best interest of everyone, that being able to have some movement is very important, in not only just in terms of for the individual themselves to not feel like they're so restrained, but even with skin integrity. To be able to do something with that movement is very important. And then last of all, just the durability of the chair. If you've got a person, if you have a person that's constantly high tone up against a backrest, then you're going to have a risk of breaking it, and this absorbs some of that. This again is something that would be available for pediatrics. It's also available on our tilt in space chair. And we believe that it needs a code. I'm not going to get through this just because of my limited time. I'm going to show a video here if I have a second, but we would just respectfully request that CMS reconsider the decision that it's already funded through the base price of the chair. It is not. We make this available on our mono back as well as our dual post back. And Felix, if you can show me, we're just going to do one last video clip of this. This actually shows it on a mono back, but this at least gives you some indication of what it does.
The Quickie Mono backrest system is designed to easily accommodate vent trays, accessory hooks, and a dynamic backrest suspension system.
So you can see what that dynamic system is there to allow that person to have some movement when they're in the wheelchair. Again, it's an upgraded item for us on our order forms. It's not an additional charge on top of the backrest that would usually be standard. And much like anything else that's upgraded, that's what Sunrise would suggest that be reconsidered in the determination for that code. Questions? Okay. Any questions around any of those products? Okay, very good. Thank you. Get this out of your way real quick. Thank you. I think I'm all disconnected.
Agenda item number 2, attachment 15.104, request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code to identify the True Balance 2 and the True Balance 3 center mount power articulating foot platform. Primary speaker is Julie Piriano.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today with regard to this. I do work for Pride Mobility Products Corporation and Quantum Rehab, so I do have a vested interest as a manufacturer in this product as a salaried employee of the company. As you know, there are two very distinct and different types of leg elevation systems used with power wheelchairs. There's the side-mounted power elevating leg rest system and a center-mounted power elevating foot platform. The side-mounted power elevating leg rest system, which is identified by HCPCS code E1010, consists of a right and a left leg rest, which operate independently by an actuator motor on each side for a total of 2. This system requires 2 electrical connections from the control box or the brains of the system in order for them to operate and function properly for the user. As you can see, these are the actuator motors, one on each side, and that's the electrical connection. Now, they can be set up and programmed to operate in conjunction with one another, but in order for them to operate independently for the end user, it does require two electrical connections. The center-mounted elevating foot platform consists of a single heavy-duty foot platform, which is operated by a heavy-duty actuator. This requires one electrical connection from the control box in order for it to operate. As a result, we agree with the preliminary decision to create a new HCPCS code that describes a center-mounted elevating foot platform, but we would recommend a reconsideration of the code description to state center-mounted foot elevating platform or elevating foot platform with articulation, complete system. The reason for this is twofold. First of all, an elevating leg rest is a bilateral system, and it cannot be mounted center to the chair. Secondly, for the center mount elevating foot platform to work effectively for the end user, it needs to have articulation or the ability for the platform to lengthen as it elevates. We feel that absent any indication or requirement for articulation with this device will set up the possibility that in the future, elevating foot platforms would not include this feature and could be detrimental to the wheelchair user themselves. It may appear that the cost to manufacture a power elevating foot platform would be half the cost to manufacture power elevating leg rests, as there's only one leg rest and one actuator motor. However, the design and manufacturing cost is significantly higher for the power articulating elevating foot platform for the following reasons. One, the design, materials, structural integrity of the power articulating elevating foot platform is engineered to hold and move twice the weight during the elevation process of the E1010 or elevating leg rest system. As a result, the actuator, the gear mechanism, the hanger, and the corresponding assembly components are significantly stronger in order to handle the double load placed on the lever arm and subsequently cost significantly more to manufacture. The power articulating elevating foot platform system mounts under the seat, putting the center of rotation for elevation well behind and below the knee joint as compared to the E1010 system. As a result, this distance requires a 4-inch longer stroke actuator and additional gears to allow the range of movement necessary to operate properly and work effectively for the end user of the chair. In addition, instead of 2 receptacles to mount the E1010 system, the frame of the chair with the power articulating elevating foot platform has 3 heavy-duty brackets under the seat to mount the device. E1010, or the power leg elevation system, is mounted in alignment with the knee joint and starts out at a 70-degree angle, which puts it at a better mechanical advantage position to operate and elevate. However, the power articulating elevating foot platform, because of its mounting system under the chair, behind and below the knee joint, starts out at a 90-degree angle, which for the person using the chair is a much better position, typically a much more stable position, and a posturally more secure position for the end user. And as a result, it takes much more power or force in order to lift the weight of both legs through the range of motion. As a result, we disagree with the preliminary determination that the fee schedule amount for this system be placed at the E1010 rate. We recognize the fact that in the claims processing manual that is referenced for the payment decision, it states that if a new code appears, carriers must make every effort to determine whether the item and service has a pricing history and profile, and that if there is a pricing history, CMS is to map the new code to previous fee schedule amounts to ensure continuity. And while we don't disagree with that, we do disagree with its application in this situation. When our first power articulating elevating foot platform was code verified as KO108 back in 2008 on our True Balance 2 system, historically, this item was reimbursed by all third-party payers, including Medicare, as a KO108 at 70 to 80% of the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And in many situations beyond the 2011 timeframe, upon appeal, was also reimbursed at 70 to 80% of the MSRP, which averaged between $2,026.50 to $2,316. When our new True Balance 3 system was code verified at KO108, there was a shift in the reimbursement, which we recognized. There was a time frame, short-lived, thank goodness, where the power center mount elevating foot platform was reimbursed at 1/2 the E1010 rate of $1,094.30, because there was a belief that it had one actuator and one leg rest. We were able to discuss with CMS the fact that it is a heavy-duty system lifting 2 legs and structurally, mechanically, operationally, and clinically significantly different. However, when CMS looked at the reimbursement rate at that point in time, it was determined that a reimbursement rate of the $1,094.30 was to be paid for those systems. E1010 and the new code for the power articulating elevating system do not describe similar items mechanically, structurally, operationally, or clinically. And so we appreciate the fact that that has been recognized by the recommendation and decision to establish a new code. However, the costs to manufacture the power articulating elevating foot platform are significantly higher than those necessary to manufacture the E1010 power elevating leg rests. Therefore, we recommend and respectfully request that CMS use gap-filling methodology to establish a reimbursement rate for the new HCPCS code to be established that is more in line with the original historical payment for this device as KO108. Are there any questions with regard to this? Thank you.
Agenda item number 3, attachment 15.105, request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code to identify a power center mount foot platform with articulation. There is no primary speaker and no 5-minute speakers. Are there any questions or comments? Agenda item number 4, attachment 15.108, request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code to identify a center mount power elevating foot platform. There are no speakers for this item. Are there any questions or comments? Agenda item number 5, attachment 15.106, request to establish 2 new level 2 HCPCS codes, one to identify a portable oxygen delivery system and another to identify the wound dressing that's intended for use with this delivery system. Primary speaker is Dr. Mark Niederauer.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. My name is Mark Niederauer. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for EO2 Concepts. I'm an employee of the company and receive all the benefits there within. What I'm here today to talk about is to present the interim results from a study that was designed in conjunction with CMS on our diabetic foot ulcer study using a new technology called continuous diffusion of oxygen therapy to treat diabetic foot ulcers, and it's a double-blind study. Our primary investigator is David Armstrong. The overall design of this study is what's considered to be a gold standard, especially in medical devices. We're running this as a prospective double-blind study. That means there's two groups in this study. One's being treated with oxygen, one without. Both groups appear to be the same, just as a placebo trial with a pharmaceutical would be. You can see here how this study was designed. We had estimated enrollment of 110 and a planned interim analysis, which has now been completed at 42 patients, so the first 21 to complete in each arm. PI is Dr. David Armstrong, and the biostatisticians are Dr. Joel Michalik and Norma Ketchum out of the Health Science Center in San Antonio. One of the comments we received, this is fairly rare in the medical device industry. It's a gold standard. It's basically a trial where neither the patients nor the doctors know how the patient's being treated. This is an overview of our therapy system, so you can see for yourself. It's a portable handheld oxygen system that directly generates oxygen from the surrounding air using a fuel cell, so it's a new type of technology. I might note that this is a technology that did not exist when existing codes were given for oxygen therapy. We use the device to generate the oxygen and deliver the oxygen to the wound using a cannula. So very similar to what you would see, for example, with a negative pressure system setup where you've got a device that's pulling a vacuum and a cannula that's pulling in. We're just going the opposite direction. We're putting oxygen pad over the wound. We have a very defined dressing system with this. That was one of the inputs we received from CMS, was to restrict the number of dressings that are being used. So we were using a moist wound therapy dressing system consisting of Tegaderm and Extrasorb, and there is a secondary dressing that you can use called Maxorb. These are the results from our interim, just the overall results from the patients. There are no differences between the two study groups, the active and the sham. You can see here the median wound size was towards the smaller end of the spectrum. Our range is 1 to 10 centimeters squared, and we had 2.28 centimeters squared median size. Average age was 59 years. Racial makeup, we had 19% black, 36% Hispanic, and 45% white. Almost a 4-to-1 ratio of male to female. And the primary outcome we're investigating here is full closure. So full closure at 2 weeks is defined as full reepithelialization with no weeping. Here it says the results have been accepted for publication in Wound Medicine. They were in the interim. They've actually been published online as of June 6th, and now available. And what you're going to see going forward is that the results, overall results are good. The trends we saw at the interim analysis are even more encouraging for the active CDO group. So what you see here is overall results, and you see 3 different areas. I'm going to talk about each one of those separately, starting with the left. That's our overall results. We saw 52% closure with the active group. The sham group experienced a 38% closure rate. Now, in designing this with CMS, there was 2 factors that we were negotiating on as far as how to set up the trial. One was in the wound size, looking at various effects of wound size, from small to large, creating subcategories, or analyzing at the interim. We chose to analyze at the interim. The other one is what's called a break-in period. Is the wound truly chronic when it comes into the study, or has it not been being treated with what we would call normal moist wound therapy? So if you look at the effect of the break-in with the moist wound therapy and seeing if it's truly a chronic wound, that's the middle column, and what we call no fast closures, analyzing for wounds that were closing up to 50% within 2 weeks of the study. You remove those, and we see a marked difference mainly in the sham group. You see a slight effect in the active group, but not much. And then the second analysis we did was looking at the interim analysis, so we're seeing our own data now, not going off of other people's references, looking at the effect of size. And so we did analysis ranging across various sizes and saw with the active group, it stayed at about 50%, 50 to 53%, no matter what the size range was. However, as we started looking at the sham group, the one that was not receiving oxygen, you saw that initially at the lower range, it was very high, and it started going down as the size increased. And we saw an inflection point, so relative performance active to sham, at about 1.5 centimeters squared. So you take only the wounds that are above 1.5 centimeters squared, you can see that the two groups, the number of patients in the groups is about equal, 17 and 16, but you see a marked difference. The active performance still stays at 53% approximately, versus the sham groups drops to 19%, and the p-value is 0.07 at an interim point, which we find very encouraging. Another effect we looked at is this secondary outcome, is time to closure. It's something that's very often looked at, and this is time to closure in the wounds that responded. So wounds that closed, how long did it take them to close? And you can see across the board, 50, 75, and 100% closure rates. The active performed significantly better at our interim point with a p-value of 0.03, and the average closure time was 24 days faster with the addition of oxygen to moist wound therapy. And this is a quote from David Armstrong when he saw these results, is that, and it was something that he was seeing in his clinic outside of the studies, that it appears that the more you need this device, so more chronic, larger wounds, the more effective it is. And the final analysis, this is something we saw early in the study. During the initial portion of the study, we saw through photo analysis, we're actually doing a planimetric analysis to verify wound closure rates, but also that the wound's closed and how the wound's performing. We saw some of the wounds appear to be drying out, which means you're not actually practicing moist wound therapy. The effect that has, if you think about it, oxygen going to a wound, the way we get oxygen to a wound is the same way we're all breathing right now. It's diffusion. It's gaseous oxygen, has to diffuse into the liquid, and then it goes into the wound base, so then the cells have access to it. If the wound's dry, adding oxygen doesn't really have any effects. There's no liquid for it to go into. And so we were seeing some of those effects early in the study. And we started doing training sessions on it does sound a little bit, I guess, basic, but making sure that people are properly practicing moist wound therapy and educating patients to make sure that wound's staying moist. Don't open the dressing a lot, don't look at it. We know you're curious, but don't do that. What we saw by doing that, just looking at, we started implementing that around almost a year into the study when we started really seeing these effects. And that's about the same time point as the median time point of the study. We started implementing training, and much more in-depth training with not only the sites but the patients on to how to, regardless which group you're in, how to perform well in the study. And we saw that prior to that median standpoint, indeed, if you look at the middle there, you can see that there almost was no effect by adding oxygen. And that confirms the theory we had that the wounds were drying out or the dressings were being opened too often or changed too often. After that, we saw our results go up significantly. So the difference since we implemented our training in the study, you can see there we have actually a significant result, p-value of 0.02, with overall results in the active group of 78% and the sham group of about 13%. And 13% is close to the 19% we saw overall for that sham group. And perhaps even more important, what we're seeing with this study at the interim results is that our results are comparable, overall results, whether you look at it, the original analysis or the analysis correcting for the initial time break-in and wound size. You see that our results are very similar to other published studies of therapies that are currently covered by CMS. The original Bloom study on the VAC that was conducted back in the early 2000s, saw 43% closure in 16 weeks. The other studies that we're comparing to are all 12-week studies. You can see their closure rates varying between 30 and 52%. Ours at interim was 53%. And with the revised criteria we're doing, so based on the criteria I just discussed and interactions with CMS last summer, we revised the study and are currently operating under these revised wound size, so 1.5 to 10, and the revised screening criteria to make sure that patients are coming into the study truly have chronic wounds. They're not fast-closing wounds coming in. See there we have 53% overall closure, and as I mentioned before, that really was not affected by the analysis I just talked about. but the relative rate to the sham was affected, and you can see there our p-value at interim was 0.07. So we can see here that the results of our interim show that we're comparable to other therapies that are out there currently, and we are currently operating under, with this study, under revised criteria of 1.5 to 10 and the revised screening criteria coming into the study, and looking forward to the results from that fairly soon. I might note that the results I've just been discussing here, just reiterate that they were published in Wound Medicine on June 6th and are now available online. So to summarize, we have designed a rigorous double-blind study that's prospective. It's very comparable to a drug placebo-controlled trial. We are doing that not only with the wound closure being defined by the physician, but also verifying with planimetric analysis on photo tracings. Overall results at interim were good, and the trends were quite encouraging. We had active 52% closed, with sham closed at 38% with the original criteria. It's a 38% relative improvement over sham by itself, so by adding oxygen. It is comparable to other CMS-covered therapies, ranging between 30 and 52% overall at 12 weeks. One thing I want to note with that is that if you look at those other studies out there, for example, the VAC studies, they actually used a Kaplan-Meier estimate to estimate wound closure. So what they're reporting at 12 weeks isn't actually a closed wound, it's a wound that will close, predicted by Kaplan-Meier at the 12-week endpoint. So those wounds are not actually closed, versus ours at the 12-week endpoint are closed and defined as closed. We noticed that the therapy could continue to become more proficient as the time went on the study with our training. And the current study we're doing right now, just want to reiterate that we saw better relative healing rates in wounds. We saw with a p-value of 0.07, we had a relative closure rate 180% more than sham in the 33 subjects that were included with those revised criteria. And we also saw a significant result of faster time to closure of almost 24 days. So wounds with CDO closing at 46 days versus 70 days for moist wound therapy alone. And again, these were not calculated using Kaplan-Meier estimates. And just reiterating what Dr. Armstrong said before, and this is what he's published in the paper, that the more you need this therapy, the better it appears to work, i.e. larger, more chronic wounds tend to respond better to the addition of continuous diffusion of oxygen therapy. So in closing, and I'll let my following speaker do the rebuttal portion. Based on these positive trends, we believe that seniors should have access to the device. As we've heard with previous speakers, not having a payable code for this type of therapy does block access. It is currently being used in the VA, but right now the private population does not have access to this therapy. And just to reiterate that the study is currently continuing. We're approaching our next interim with the revised criteria, and we look forward to having those results soon that we can present those. Thank you for your time.
We have a 5-minute speaker, Mr. Joseph Moffett.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. EO2 respectfully disagrees with the preliminary decision that CDO technology in the TransQO2 is adequately defined as part of an NCD for hyperbaric oxygen therapy, whose benefit categories are for physicians and facilities and additionally paid on CPT codes. These two technologies have very different form and delivery factors. The only similarity of continuous diffusion of oxygen therapy to hyperbaric oxygen therapy is that both employ the use of 100% oxygen. CDO is battery-operated, wearable device for any patient environment, has no known risks, doesn't require physician monitoring during use, and doesn't require a patient to travel to a facility for daily dives. CDO oxygen delivery is local to a wound at 1 atmosphere, and the oxygen is delivered continuously. By contrast, HBOT delivers oxygen systemically through the respiratory system above 1 atmosphere and intermittently in 90-minute daily dives. These statements are not intended to denigrate the value of HBO2 to patient care, but only to point out the radical difference in the technology delivery systems. NCD 2029 defines HBOT, but a 2003 update included topical oxygen, in quotes. In the indications and limitations for comment C, 6 years before EO2 technology received 510K approval, which recognized the physical delivery differences of the two technologies. EO2 acknowledges and agrees CDO is not HBOT, as identified in the indications of limitation for coverage in comment C1. I muse with a thought, where would lasers be if the same logic were applied, whereby lasers were arbitrarily assigned to an NCD for incandescent light bulbs because they are both simply light. EO2 will follow its randomly controlled double-blind study protocol to prove the predictability of the medical outcomes of this technology and believe the demonstrated efficacy will allay the concerns of 2029 indications and limitation of coverage, comment C2. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you.
Any questions?
Just out of curiosity, how do you feel about the coding decision?
I opened up, we disagree with the...
Because you mostly talked about the coverage, and I'm just, my reason to be here is the coding, so do you feel EO446 does not describe your device?
We don't consider this to be topical, but we're introducing this concept of continuous diffusion of oxygen. Dr. Nieder mentioned that we require a moist wound therapy as a base so that the oxygen molecule can actually migrate to the wound bed. That's paramount importance to our mechanism of action of moving oxygen from a local environment into that wound bed.
And if I could add to that, one of the things when EO446 was created is that was created with the topical oxygen devices that were available on the market at that time. Devices such as ours did not exist yet, and the primary difference between the two is the topical oxygen devices that were available at that time are also intermittent and follow the same 90-minute time frame, and they only treat 3 to 5 days a week. Our technology continuously treats a wound underneath a moist wound therapy dressing, so that wound is breathing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, versus topical oxygen devices are getting somewhere only 90 minutes a day, 3 to 5 days a week. So that's a huge difference in the amount of oxygen being delivered to the wound, and you also don't have to change the wound dressings, and the patient's completely mobile while they're being treated, so you're reducing time and you're increasing mobility of the patients at the same time.
Hi, thank you both for your presentations. I just wanted to comment that wordsmithing on the language of the code is not going to get past the issue that you guys seem to have with Medicare at least, which is a coverage matter. And this is not the forum to have that discussion. I understand that you have been in contact, or EO2 Concepts has been in discussions with CMS's coverage and analysis group, and we appreciate that you've moved forward and done some studies at their recommendation. I would like to say that it's completely inappropriate to say that you're doing studies in conjunction with CMS, and I hope that you're not saying that publicly anywhere else, because that's not exactly accurate. So the studies the study that you just completed that's online now should really go to CMS's coverage and analysis group if your aim is to undo the coverage decision. Now, CAG has already reviewed this product. This is a repeat request. So to say that coverage decision was made before EO2, this product, the TransQ02, was contemplated, doesn't really apply, because we've already looked at it in the context of that coverage decision. So that's really the hurdle that you need to get past with CMS and Medicare at least, and just in fairness, we're not the people that you should be giving this information to. So you've got a little bit more work to do. I think that's all I need to say.
Just a form of rebuttal, because I've been with the company now 3 years, and I've listened to this conversation get bounced back and forth. You know, your position is with the HCPCS work group, because EO446 is, this requires a new code because there's a completely different mechanism of action than the HCPCS code. You know, if I would paraphrase what I just heard, says, well, your position is with the coverage and analysis group. The difficulty is depending on who we're talking to, the fingers go back and forth. So what we're doing is making the information available to both groups, okay, so that perhaps you have a better understanding of the conundrum that we find ourselves in, when in fact what the company is largely spending its resources on is providing the efficacy required for proving that this indeed does produce the medical outcomes that we believe it does, as well as some of the economic factors that I think are the reality of our current country's condition. We have to find ways to lower the cost of care, and this big diabetic ulcer group, or this group of patients, are huge and future drag on the cost of care to our healthcare delivery system. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for your time.
On to our O&P, or orthotic and prosthetic segment for today's meeting. Agenda item number 6, attachment 15.115, third request to establish a new level 2 HCPCS code to identify a custom dynamic response orthotic pylon strut, energy storing AFO. There are no speakers for this item. Are there any questions or comments? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Joe McTurnan. I represent the American Orthotic and Prosthetic Association. I have no financial relationship with the manufacturer of this device, and my comment is one of generality. I think all I'd like to say to the panel, and you all have seen me stand before you in the past, is that you know, I think there's a message in the fact that this has now come before the panel for the 3rd time, and I have no dog in the fight as far as coding or whatnot for this particular product. My concern, and the industry concern, is that the past decisions of the panel and the current preliminary decision of the panel takes a device that uses modern technology, tremendous research and development, and places it into a coding category that describes a product that was identified, created more than 30 years ago. Puts it into a very generic category of product that just says custom molded AFO, plastic or other material. And I think that there's a danger there in encouraging folks to develop new and better technology that this product represents through energy storing and the ability to store and return energy, in that all of that work and all of that technology and all of that benefit to the patient simply gets pigeonholed back into a very, very basic device. So that's my only comment for the group. You know, if you all would consider looking into the possibility of addition codes to describe new technology, additional technology that goes beyond what is part of the base code, that is the very basic, the most basic fact. In fact, one of our codes that are out there that just simply says AFO plastic molded to patient model. So, thank you very much.
Agenda item number 7, attachment 15.3, fourth request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code, addition code, to separately identify a manual prosthetic cable control and locking system for upper extremity prosthesis. There are no speakers for this item. Are there any questions or comments? Agenda item number 8, attachment 15.61, repeat request to establish a unique level 2 HCPCS code to identify injectable implants, Prolarin Plus and Prolarin Gel. Primary speaker is Stuart Langbine.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Stuart Langbein. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Hogan Lovells, and I'm outside counsel to Merz Pharmaceutical North America, and that's the extent of my financial interest with the company. I'm here to address the HCPCS preliminary decision regarding the application submitted for the Prolarin products. We submitted a single application for a single code for both of these Prolarin products. Prolarin Plus, which is composed of calcium hydroxyl apatite, and Prolarin Gel, which is composed of sodium carboxymethylcellulose. Both products are injected into the larynx as a treatment for vocal fold medialization or insufficiency to facilitate the closing of the vocal folds. The Prolarin Plus has a demonstrated efficacy of 12 months, whereas Prolarin Gel has a demonstrated efficacy of 3 to 6 months. The reason physicians might choose the Prolarin Gel is if the issue that the patient is experiencing is a shorter term issue, they may choose Prolarin Gel. Alternatively, they may try the Prolarin Gel first before moving to the Prolarin Plus product. In the application, we requested the descriptor that you see up on the screen: injectable bulking agent, calcium hydroxyl apatite or sodium carboxymethylcellulose vocal fold, 1 cc, include shipping and necessary supplies. As I'll talk about, a lot of the basis for that recommendation was tying to the descriptors for other prosthetic implant codes in the HCPCS code set. We also asked that the code be in the L86XX series, which is where in the HCPCS code set you find prosthetic implant products. The preliminary decision of the work group was to grant a single L code. The descriptor is, as you see, a little bit different than we had suggested. The preliminary decision descriptor is injectable bulking agent for vocal fold medialization, 0.1 mLs. We certainly agree with the HCPCS work group about the creation of a single L code. We do seek a few revisions to the descriptor language that I'll talk about in a little bit more detail, but the revisions that we seek are: we ask for the use of cc for the base dose instead of ml. We also asked to make the descriptor more specific to the Prolarin product so that not just any agent can be used. And we also suggest the addition of language about including shipping and necessary supplies. So let me address each of these. As I mentioned, when we submitted the application, we suggested a base dose that was tied to cc's. The reason for that is that all the product packaging and marketing materials for both the Prolarin Plus and Prolarin Gel products use cc's and not mLs. For example, the instructions for use for both products use cc up front in the product description, and really nothing, I think, in what we submitted as far as explaining what the products are or materials related to the products used ml. Because everything is in terms of cc, we think it will be clearer as a coding matter for coders and physicians if cc's are used versus mLs. Now, I'm not a chemist or anything, and I understand that mLs and cc may be a very similar unit of measure and interchangeable, but it still seems to me that because of the packaging and the references being to cc, it would be more in keeping with what the work group usually does to utilize what's in the packaging and labeling as for cc instead of ml. So we are asking that instead of using mLs in the descriptor for the new L code, which we urge you to finalize, that you use cc instead. We're also asking for greater specificity in the descriptor. If you look at the preliminary decision language, the descriptor would really facilitate almost any bulking agent to be administered into the vocal fold and fit the language. And to me, that's a somewhat marked departure from what you see in the code set. for the other prosthetic implant codes. And we've specifically listed 4 prosthetic implant codes, L8603, 8604, 8605, and 8606. And we've underscored on the slide that for each of those codes, you see that the composition of the product is built into the descriptor language. And in fact, if you look at 8603, 04, and 06, those are all talking about different prosthetic implants in the urinary tract, and they're differentiated by the composition of the material. 8603 has collagen. 8604 has dextranomer/hyaluronic acid copolymer, whereas 8606 is a synthetic implant. So we are concerned with the breadth of the descriptor for the Prolarum products, and we do think it's not in keeping with what CMS has done or what the work group has done as far as descriptors for other products. So we are requesting that the composition of the products be included in the descriptor. So the language you see at the bottom on the slide in the request that calcium hydroxyl apatite Prolarum Plus, or sodium carboxymethylcellulose Prolarum Gel, we ask that those be included in the descriptor. We're also asking that the descriptor include shipping and necessary supplies. I just want to go back to the, if you look back at the 4 HCPCS codes that were on this slide, each of them at the end includes shipping and necessary supplies at the end of the descriptor language. And what we're suggesting the same additional language here because we think it's consistent with the treatment of other prosthetic implants codes. And it also makes clear that the necessary supplies that come in the kit for Prolarum Plus and Prolarum Gel are not billed separately. So we are asking that the descriptor language contain the language, quote, includes shipping and necessary supplies. I mentioned earlier that we asked that the code be in the L86XX series, and I wanted to explain why we've made that request. We have separately approached the CMS payment policy staff about an informal benefit category for these products, and the result of that was the determination by CMS that these products, the Prolarum products, are prosthetic implants. And in that discussion was specifically mentioned that they are like Contigen and Celesta, which are billed under L8603 and L8605, which are 2 of the codes that I had listed earlier. Under CMS policy, there's a DMEPOS jurisdiction list. And in that jurisdiction list, it says that for anything in the L86XX series, the jurisdiction for the claims for those items are not to the DME MAC, but they're actually go to the Part B MAC. So because these are prosthetic implants like Contigen and Celesta, where the DMEPOS jurisdiction list suggests not to send the claim to the DME MAC, but to the Part B MAC. We're also looking for Prolarum Plus and Prolarum Gel code, again a prosthetic implant, to likewise be in the L86XX series so that the same jurisdictional rules would apply. So in conclusion, we are appreciative of the recognition of the work group that a new L code be created, and we certainly urge the work group to finalize that L code. We do ask that it, again, be in the 86XX series, and we ask that some revisions be made to the proposed descriptor, and we suggest the following for the descriptor of the new L code. Injectable bulking agent, calcium hydroxyl apatite, Prolarum Plus, or sodium carboxymethylcellulose, Prolarum Gel, vocal fold medialization, 0.1 cc, includes shipping and necessary supplies. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Agenda item number 9, attachment 15.114, third request to create a distinction between trachea-esophageal voice prostheses that have a magnetic voice valve closure and those that do not. There are no speakers for this item. Are there any questions or comments? Agenda item number 10, attachment 15.117, request to modify existing level 2 HCPCS code L8621 to include use with auditory osseointegrated devices. There are no speakers for this item. Are there any questions or comments? Agenda item number 11, attachment 15.116, repeat request to establish 4 unique level 2 HCPCS codes to identify Argus 2 retinal prosthesis system. Primary speaker is Brenda Bichetto.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present to the work group. And my name is Brenda Bosquetto. I'm the reimbursement director at Second Sight Medical Products. I am a direct employee, and I am paid a salary and benefits. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Argus 2 retinal prosthesis system, as well as to discuss our opinion regarding the proposed decision of the work group. The agenda, I just want to go over a little bit about retinitis pigmentosa, what it is, the Argus 2 retinal prosthesis system, the HCPCS request and preliminary responses, and our belief that the existing coding is inappropriate for the replacement components, as well as the proposed HCPCS code that the work group has, in their preliminary decision, determined V2799. We believe that is inappropriate as well. And to provide additional information regarding the replacement battery components, including the charger. So what is retinitis pigmentosa? RP is a progressive inherited disease that leads to total blindness in patients. And patients who have RP, they may feel anxious. They know that eventually they will go blind. They will lose their sight completely. And because of this blindness, they often have difficulties handling activities of daily living, such as, finding their plate, eating, getting around the house, turning on the lights, walking across a crosswalk. And the prevalence is about 1 in 3,500. In the US at any given time, there are about 100,000 patients who have RP. Less than 500 of those patients actually would qualify for the Argus 2. And currently, it is the only treatment option for these patients. And what is it? The Argus 2 is a retinal prosthesis system, and the system is composed of an implant that is placed on the patient's retina. And this implant has a number of electrodes and an electronic package that is used to communicate or receive information from the Argus 2 glasses. And we call these glasses, but they're really just a head-mounted system. Blind patients are used to wearing glasses because oftentimes their eyes don't appear as normal people's eyes do. They shake, they move around. And the glasses themselves, I'm going to pass these around to you folks as well, include a receiver portion that receives information from a camera that's mounted in the center. And this communicates back and forth with a video processing unit. So as patients wear their glasses, the camera captures an image and it's communicated through the video processing unit to the implant on the retina and enables the patients to have a form of artificial vision. It's not vision like you and I see. I like to say we see in 3D HD TV. These patients see in black and white television. So I'm just going to pass this around so you guys can take a look at it. So the Argus 2 is indicated for use in patients who have advanced stages of RP. They have to have bare light or no light perception. They have to have a previous form of useful vision. And they must be willing to participate in post-op rehab. We received a humanitarian use device designation by the FDA in February 2013. And the surgery itself, these are all the steps comprised in the surgery. I won't go into details because it's really not that relevant for this meeting. Again, substantial clinical benefit is provided. We did work with CMS and were able to obtain pass-through payment and new tech add-on payment for the device. And the ultimate goal of this is to improve patients' quality of life. I see these patients, I talk to these patients, and I see the impact it's had on their lives in the ability to do things that we take for granted, like go to a restaurant and eat a meal without knocking over their plate or knocking over their glass. Going around the house at night to turn off the lights without feeling the light bulb and burning their hand. They can tell when the light is on and off. And these are simple things, but they mean a lot to these patients. In our application, we requested 4 unique HCPCS codes for the replacement parts. And the replacement components include the glasses that have the camera and the RF transmitter coil on them. We requested another code for the video processing unit, which is the square box that's a little bigger than the size of a deck of cards. We also requested codes for the lithium batteries and the battery charger that are needed to power the system. And CMS's preliminary decision was that the existing code CPT 0100T and C1841 were appropriate to describe the entire system. And we do agree with that because those are the code sets that are used and the specific codes that are used during the initial implantation and provision of the entire Argus 2 retinal prosthesis system. Regarding existing V2799, vision item or service miscellaneous, it was the work group's preliminary decision that this code is available to insurers to report the head-mounted telemetry system, camera, and replacement VPUs. We disagree with that. And then I apologize, we did not include sufficient information to the work group regarding our battery and the battery charger in our original application. We have since provided that, and we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. Why do we believe that the existing coding is inappropriate for replacements? As I mentioned previously, we agree with C1841 and 0100T being reported for the initial procedure and the initial implantation of the retinal prosthesis system. However, the external components do require replacement. The warranty for the head-mounted telemetry and VPU is 12 months. If the patients break their glasses or somehow damage the VPU, these do need to be replaced, and insurers will need a mechanism for billing, for providing payment, and providers will need a mechanism to bill those supplies. The warranty for the batteries is 3 months, and the battery charger is the same warranty. And it would be inappropriate to bill 0100T or C1841 to replace these individual components. Even if you looked at C1841 and the code descriptor, it does include the implant and all external components. So it just wouldn't be appropriate to bill that. It would be unbundling. And again, we need unique HCPCS codes to accurately bill for the replacement of the Argus 2 prosthesis system external components. And V2799 is concerning to us, primarily because this is a code that is used for vision items and services. And we really need a distinct code and a unique code to bill for the replacement of those glasses with the camera and the RF coil attached. Why is it inappropriate? These V codes are generally used to describe vision services such as, and supplies such as glasses, regular everyday glasses. And it falls under a different benefit category. So I'll go see the optometrist, and the optometrist will prescribe glasses for me, and those may be billed with a V code. These patients don't see optometrists. They're blind. They don't go to the optometrist. And oftentimes they may not even have a vision service benefit. So it really needs to be categorized as a prosthetic, because it is a prosthetic. It's part of the complete Argus 2 retinal prosthesis system. Without these external components, the implant prosthesis will not operate. As I mentioned, it is clinically dissimilar from other products given V codes such as James. And we believe that claims are likely to be denied by payers because they are not going to want to pay for eyeglasses for blind patients. And regarding the HCPCS code for the battery components, and again, I apologize for not including this information on our original application, the VPU uses rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, and these can be recharged. They last typically 2 to 3 hours per use, and the patients don't have the system on 24/7. Some patients use it maybe 8 hours a day, some 6, but they do need to have these replacement batteries and have them available. We also need codes for the battery charger, because the lithium batteries are rechargeable. They're placed in the battery charging unit. Established 4 separate HCPCS codes for the Argus 2 external replacement components. One for the head-mounted telemetry and video data collection system, the glasses mounting that I passed around. One for the video processing unit. One for the battery charger, and one for the rechargeable batteries. Any questions?
When the patient has this implant done,
Yes.
do they go home with all the equipment, the head-mounted telemetry unit, the video processing unit, the battery charger, and the batteries?
Not the first day. It's an outpatient procedure. They typically go home the first day. When they come back for their first follow-up visit, that is when they're supplied all that equipment.
Okay, and I just have one other comment, that I disagree with you that the V codes are for eyeglasses and lenses only. There are prosthetic eyes within the V codes, so it is used for vision services as well.
Okay, thank you.
And prosthetics.
I have a question, if you don't mind. How many of these have been implanted to date?
In the U.S., we've had, in 2014, we had 16 implanted, and then up through Q1, we have implanted 6.
Can you tell us about the success rate? How many of the patients who've had these implanted historically are still using them more than a year later?
Most of them are still using it, to my knowledge. We have patients come in our office every few months, and we recently had a patient who was implanted last summer, and she's doing great. It's amazing to watch her. I sat down and had lunch with her and watched her use it with it on and be able to find her fork, find her plate, eat. Then I watched her without it on, and it was a world of difference.
Can you tell me how many batteries are used at a time?
1 battery at a time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have completed our agenda for today. I'd like to take this time to thank you all for the excellent and thought-provoking discussion and for taking time out of all of your busy schedules to appear here in person and to share with us all your valuable input. Thank you. Please remember to gather all of your belongings, and we look forward to seeing you next year.